On this channel, $1 Million Made Easy, we like to run numbers for people. And I had an interesting request just recently. First of all, they said they love the channel, which I'm thankful for. He said, starting with 20,000, 20K, adding 1,000 a month, how long would it take to reach $1 million? And the second question is, what monthly contribution is needed to reach $1 million in 15 years? Now, there's a big difference here. And here's what I'm talking about. Over any 10 or 15 year period, you don't know if you run into a buzzsaw like these years right here, you're going to actually have less money than you put in after 10 years. And even after 15 years, you're not hardly going to have any. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the 20,000 you said to start with. You wanted to put in 1,000 a month. And here are the numbers after 10 years. He would have put in 140,000. And the worst case scenario was 1923. You only have 117,000. The second worst is 117,800. Third worst is 126,000. That's putting in 140,000. After 10 years, you have less than what you started with. Why? You can see the numbers over here, the 1923 numbers. You go along here just fine. You're up to 234,000, and all of a sudden, by the end of that 4-year down stretch, you're down to 117,298, which is right there. 15 years isn't much better. 200,000 put in, the minimum you're going to find is 225,000 in this 15-year column. You really need to be in it for the long term. That's why we keep saying 25, at least 25 years, preferably 30 or 35 years. Start when you're young. In this case scenario, after 30 and 35 years, let me go over here a little bit, show you a little bit more. Right here, after 25 years, you put in 320,000, and the absolute worst case scenario would have been 1924. Let me click on 1924 here. And after 15 years, you'd have 349. To 20 years, 496. But there's a 25-year number, 899. And look, by the 30th year, you'd have 2.123 million. Putting in how much? 320,000. You got to the 30 year, you're putting in 380,000. Then the minimum is 1.775. The median being almost 3 million. If you can go 35 years, that'd be 440,000 you're putting in. But look at the kind of numbers you have. The absolute worst case scenario. In other words, you can't just expect a 10 or 15 year run to accumulate to these kind of numbers down here. Even though you're putting in $1,000, he wanted to know how much it would be if you, how much would it take to get to $1 million? Well, I even ran it for 3,000. Even 3,000, you're not going to do it. Why? Because you're going to put in more, you're going to have less than what you actually put in. You put in $3,000, you put in $380,000. Let me update this. It takes just a second to update all this. But over a 10-year period, you're going to put in $380,000, starting with the 20,000 and 1,000 a month. Put in 380,000, and again, it's working out all these numbers for all these years. It takes a little bit longer. This is why I don't like to run it for 10 or 15 years for anybody. You put in 380, in the worst case scenario, you only have 299. Second worst, third worst, the median, you have 665,000, but you're still not up to $1 million unless you have one of the better years right here. So hopefully this makes sense that I don't really like to run numbers for less than 25 years. I do it for 20 years. In this case, I did it for 10 and 15 just to show you that you could hit a bad string. You could hit down right here 10 years. We don't know what the future is going to hold. In the year 2000, you could have all these down years and then a down 37. Let's just look at that real quick. The year 2000, and you'll see the same kind of scenario. Year 2000, how much would you put in? 380,000, and yet 1923 to have 299,000. Here's 1988, or excuse me, 2000. After 10 years, you'd have 400,000. After 15 years, yeah, you would get up to $1 million then. So you would get up to $1 million in 15 years in this scenario. It all depends on what's going on, those initial years, and what kind of a run you run into. If you have some down years, you may not even get what you actually put in. You may have less than what you started with. So after 15 years, you would have put in 560,000, and if you had years like right here, 1927, you'd have 616,000. Even though you put in 560,000, you only have 616. Hopefully these numbers make sense to you. I really hesitate to run it for 10 or 15 years simply because you could have a down time like 1929 or 1927 or whatever. And even in 1973, let's run that one real quick because that was 2 down years in a row. 2 down after 15 years, you would have been fine in 1973 because you had so many great comeback years. So you would have, after 10 years, you would have put in 380,000, you'd have 684. After 15 years, you'd have 1.707 million, which is right there. I love running numbers for people. Channel's called $1 Million Made Easy. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends about these numbers. They need to see it, but especially those people that have 30 and 35 and 40 years till retirement. That's when the numbers really take off. Thanks for watching.